All right, so I was taking notes. That's why I got this thing. And we'll go through them and then see if it becomes coherent. First, let me just say, we all mean well, right? As we have the best intention. We all mean well. So I'm not, while I may sound critical, I'm not critical of our intentions. Everybody here means well. From the first day, particularly the first half of the first day, I was getting the feeling like we believed that if only the sort of laughably incompetent, old school bureaucratic messiness of government were smoothly transitioned to our beautiful, pristine digital platforms, then all of the problems would go away. And the problem with that, as Dana Boyd began to point out, was that when you port things onto these platforms, the biases of those platforms end up directing the activity. So we end up with the scrum minimum viable resilient values of Silicon Valley as the bedrock for citizen-driven social justice and democracy. And that just doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because Silicon Valley venture capitalism, the digital startup world, and the tools they build are based on the principle of externalizing the social costs of development. All you need to do is play with your iPhone and think about the pristine little box that the iPhone is in, and you think about that the energy it needs is what I plug into the wall. You don't think about the 2 refrigerators worth of electricity that the cell phone is actually using when it's pulling on all those servers out there. I don't care if they're supposedly renewable solar. Where are you getting the solar panels for your renewable energy farm? So the externalized costs of energy, the externalized cost of labor, the externalized cost of the drivers, the externalized perception of people. The operating system beneath these operating systems, this is the one we're not talking about that much, the operating system beneath the operating system of the technologies that we're all using is corporate capitalism. That's what it's built on. If you build a tool on the platform of corporate capitalism, no matter what you want that tool to do, that tool is also an expression of the values of corporate capitalism, which are to externalize costs to other people. That's the history of it. We have our money system is an extractive money system. But the whole point of most of the developed technologies that we have as businesses was to extract value from people and places and convert that value into share price for a few investors. The only one who has a voice at the table in technology development is the venture capitalists. It used to be, even Adam Smith knew this, there were 3 factors of production. Right? It was land, labor, and capital. Think about that for a second. Land, labor, and capital. If capital is the only one that gets to talk, what happens to land? Climate crisis. What happens to labor? Disenfranchisement of 99% of the planet. Duh. And what did we do? What did we do? We took the corporate program and digitized it. And then we're saying, oh, well, now let's get government on there too, because, oh, it's so good. And it's really hard to start any kind of digital business another way. I mean, we could pick an example out of a hat. My favorite's always Twitter, because I knew Evan Williams, a great guy, well-meaning guy. And I saw him on the cover of the Wall Street Journal with the number 4.3 billion under his face the morning that they let, Twitter ring the opening bell on the stock exchange, and all those guys in suits applauded for them. And I thought, this guy's fucked. Right? Because he was. Because what does it mean if all those guys in suits are clapping for you? Are they all clapping because you've done something really disruptive? No, they're clapping because you've confirmed the primacy of corporate capital to the whole scheme of things. And then they will force you to what? To pivot into something that's going to give them 100x or 1,000x returns. So now that poor little Twitter, 140 character app that makes what is it, $500 million a quarter, $2 billion a year, is considered an abject failure by Wall Street. Because it's circulating, it's generating value, it's doing this great thing, but it seems to have reached a peak. Oh no, it can't grow anymore. It only makes $2 billion. Imagine telling your mom, I only make $2 billion a year, so we have to change. Right? So it's not allowed to be the thing that it could be. It's not allowed to just be a company, because it's a company that has to be sold in order to make money. I have to be able to sell my shares. It's a kind of a flip this house thing. And the problem with this arrangement, the problem with the entire house of digital cards being built on this faulty 12th century printing press era economic operating system, is that it forces these companies to extract value from people and places rather than circulate it. You know, Amazon didn't go into books because it wanted to promote a sustainable book industry. Right? It went to books because it was the lowest hanging fruit in the entire, I mean, believe me, I'm a writer. It's the lowest hanging fruit, the most cobbled together little industry. So it was the easiest place to establish a monopoly from which it could then leverage that monopoly into other verticals. I mean, don't think, I mean, I understand that in part technology is our hero, but don't think that people really see it that way. All of these disenfranchised persons, they are literally throwing rocks at the Google bus. You know, the title is not just poetry of that book. It's actually happening. They're throwing rocks at the Google bus. It's like, you know, the episode of Twilight Zone, To Serve Man. They see these things as the alien ships coming in. And what's happened? They can't live in the towns anymore. That's how separate the digital economy has become from the real one. You know, and we want to build our platforms, our tools, our apps on that. Really, really tricky. Right? It's really tricky. The actual tools that you use are the tools that you're using. You know, so the whole point of digital technology as it's been developed so far has been to sell companies rather than serving human needs or creating sustainable revenue. Sustainable revenue is a problem. We have a tax code that hates sustainable revenue, right? You get, if you make dividends on your stock, you're taxed high. If you make capital gains, you're taxed low. What does that say? We have a tax policy that is optimized for the extraction of value, not the circulation of value. That's the whole point. You know, the alternative economic model for a digital era would be a distributist one. That's what digital technology connotes. This is a distributed system. You know, the mantra I would use as you try to start companies, whether they're regular companies or companies for social good, is not, who are we going to get to invest in this company so that we can sell it? I mean, you can't do a social good company with that framework. Your framework has to be one of, how can we increase the velocity of money? Right? It's more the idea of how do I earn the same dollar 10 times rather than pull $10 out of the system. No, so what we want to do really is retrieve distributism. We want to retrieve the peer-to-peer culture. And we saw some great talks about this. We want to bring back cooperatives, this time as a platform co-op. What if the drivers of Uber owned 50% of the company? It would make the fact that they are doing the R&D for their robot replacements a whole lot less painful, right? Because they're going to own it. You know, but without human intervention, this is really what drove home by the end of the day yesterday. Without human intervention and a focus on solidarity, conscious in our mind, human solidarity, then we let the tools run our world for us. And what do we get in terms of democracy? Then we get Trump. Then we get the mobocracy, as we heard. Is that how we say it, mobocracy? Trump is the perfect digital candidate. Right? He is the perfect expression of the digital media environment, sans humanity. It's as if he came from the trollish comments section of any blog. It's perfect. And plus, in terms of a digital, if you really want to look at the transition from a television era to a digital era, Reagan was the television era. Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, because television was globalist. What does Trump do? Digital, discrete. Let's build a wall. Are they Mexicans or are they Americans? Is he this? Is he that? Is he Canadian? Is he this? It's about everything being discrete. So if you move into a digital media environment without understanding the biases of the technology, just let it rip, this is what you will get. And it's not going to be pretty. You know, our platforms because they are optimized for extraction of value from people and places. They are optimized for attention, for sensationalism. They're optimized to create filter bubbles and incitement. That's what we saw on these screens all day yesterday. And what is a filter bubble really? It goes back to corporate capitalism. A filter bubble is the externalization of those we don't want to see. If I have a good filter bubble, I don't have to see black people. I just get to see white porn or whatever it is we're supposed to want. And Google's really good at that, right? We understand that's what the search engine is for, is not to let you search the web. It's to let you narrow the web. It's to and externalize the stuff. Don't nobody bring me no bad news, That's too old a reference, I guess. It's the Wiz. There's just... Now, the whole point of democracy, as I've learned from coming to the PDF, the whole point of democracy is not externalizing anything. That's the very purpose of government, is to look at what's being externalized and make it and account for it. And oh no, those are being disenfranchised. Oh no, this is the opposite of the corporate program. But it's diametrically opposed to the values that are embedded in the tools and technologies and platforms that we're using. Think about the American Revolution. We're told it was against, the King of England or something? The American Revolution was not against the monarchy any more than it was against the British East India Trading Company, which had made it illegal for people, if you grew cotton, you weren't allowed to turn the cotton into fabric. That was against the law. You had to ship the cotton back to Britain, where they would make it into cotton and then sell it, or into fabric, and then sell it back to us. And it was that one company, British East India Trading Company. You had to do it through them. It was the original platform monopoly. So when we were protesting that, when we were fighting that, we were fighting for the right to a peer-to-peer economy and peer-to-peer activity. So we get the net, and we think, is that now are we going to retrieve the peer-to-peer anti-corporate ethos? And I was reminded of that when we put up, I forgot who it was, put up John Barlow's Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace. And I love John Barlow, great person, means well. Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace calls out government. You governments of the world beware, you stony, thorny, horrible, old things, whatever he said. Anti-government, government, get off our internet. And I understand why he did that. This was Operation Sun Devil. Remember that back then? Operation Sun Devil, and they're putting all the sweet little hacker kids in jail and on Oprah and whatever. It was, this dark period. Government was bad. But what happens when you get government off the platform? It's like getting rid of all the fungus. The bacteria grow. And what did we get? We got corporatism. If you get rid of government, you get corporations. And so we lost the net. And I understand, and I'm sad about that. Right? We lost the net. And then I see some of us talking about, look how we lost the net to corporate culture. Wasn't that awful? But I understand, that we went from the open web to kind of closed Facebook. And we have really racially skewed search results and all that. But do we really want to fight about that? When I see what's going on in Iran and Bahrain and wherever, now here we are in America. Okay, the web was supposed to make the world more open. And now we're going to fight to make the web more open. There's an F backwardsness in that to me. I understand we want to promote the openness of the web, but somehow I want to put humans first. I feel like there's a more essential struggle. And that struggle is obscured because of this disconnect, because of our inability to see the underlying operating system of corporate capitalism. That's what leads to depression and then dependency on big pharma. That's what leads to climate change and disenfranchisement of labor. The extractive net can't save us all and make you rich any more than Al Gore can save the environment with a hedge fund. In a digital media environment, I believe the means are the ends. It's another way of saying the medium is the message. The means are the ends. The way we do the thing is the way we do the thing. It is the thing itself. So what, we want to use a blockchain to engender trust? Blockchains don't engender trust. They perpetuate the distrust that was already programmed into us by institutions depending on our mistrust of each other. And it does it by spending energy. Do we want to use Google for our information access? Really? Google, which will mistake the image ID of a black person for a gorilla? Did you know that? There are these two faces that Google said were gorillas. No, the object of the game is solidarity, and solidarity is not going to be found in an app or a website, particularly not one that was built to convert land and labor into share price. It is showbiz. These apps are showbiz. They are performative. And once you get performative, I'm standing up here, you lose solidarity. I'm no longer one with you. I am now separate. Once you're performing, once you're tweeting, once you're updating, you're back in show business. You're back in Trump land. It's the real world. Solidarity happens in the real world. Real people standing together for the sole purpose of enacting social justice. And the way we get there is how we get there. So finally, I know my time is up. But my advice, my concern is, don't change yourself to accommodate the digital industrial environment. The cognitive bias to the one negative thing might actually be a good thing in a world with filter bubbles where they're trying not to let us see anything that disagrees with us. I feel like I'd rather be a canary in the coal mine, seeing that negative thing, trying to keep that alive. Don't externalize the painful. Externalizing the painful is externalizing the oppressed. I'd rather be Tom Joad. Every suffering guy, with everyone who's getting beaten, let me see them all. Externalize nothing. Bring land and labor back to the table. It's here in the real world that human beings have the home field advantage. This is the only, but not there. We can't have the home field advantage online. That's their turf. This is where we get, 3-day work week, universal income. That results from programming technology for humans rather than adapting humans to the technology. There's a naivete plus an inevitability here that's a little dangerous and that we can easily flip. The naivete is that these tools from Eisenhower's military-industrial complex that he warned us about, that we think that they are not embedded with values. And what they are is the way the law used to protect chartered monopolies, now we have code that protects chartered monopolies. So if you don't know the code, you don't know that. And the inevitability is this notion that, they are building the world that we will all soon inhabit. I do not see an obligation to inhabit that world. And maintaining enough autonomy to say, no, we don't have to use this. No, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. My God, people are wondering how I'm surviving. I've done it. I've done it. Don't focus on the platforms or the technologies over the protocols, because the protocols are embodied in us. Protocols are the way we enact things together as people. But mostly, democracy is not something we get or even build. It's something we do. It's much more a verb, really, than a thing. And finally, because I don't want to end, there was and I don't have an ending, and we shouldn't end. There was an article in the New York Times this morning I saw on my way here that the period is going out of style because of texting and all, and the period means, on the one hand, it's a great example of the way the digital media environment changes the way we think and communicate and understand language and all that. And on the other hand, there's something really good about that. That certainly, as far as PDF is concerned, this ending, this is not the period. We know that getting to do the closing speech is not. This is the first speech of next year, right? This is not something that ends. It can't be. We never get there. The struggle continues. It's a permanent revolution. What PDF can be at its very best is the initiation of a process, because unlike our technology, we humans are alive. Okay, thank you.